Now let's look at the last type of opening we're going to cover, opening with a description. Like an anecdote, opening with a description of a place, a person, or an object can pique your reader's imagination. It can take them into your writing and make them want to read on. Nathan could open his paper with a description of what it's like to be walking down the hallways of a high school.
It was a dark and stormy night. The hallways of the high school were quiet, but I could smell the remains of the cliques.
Regardless of how you begin your paper, just remember that you want your opening to introduce the focus of your paper. And above all, your readers should wish their limbs severed by horses rather than not be able to keep reading your paper. Let's go back to Nathan's opening.
Nathan's opening does introduce the topic of his paper, high school groups. But unless you're interested in the topic, it gives you no reason to read on.
You want your opening to grab your reader's attention. It should be very specific with vivid and engaging language.
Have you decided what type of opening you're going to use?
Yeah, I think description, but I'm going to combine description with humor. I think humor, when humorous, can be very funny.
When Nathan goes back and revises his paper, here's what he comes up with. This new opening is on paper number 2 of your insert cards. Why don't you take a sec to read it right now?
Groups. They're the cornerstone of social order. From the caste systems of India to the terrifying pecking order in federal prison, separation through grouping manifests itself in countless arenas.
Nathan will probably want to continue to refine his opening, but his new revision is more vivid.
Instead of saying groups are everywhere, he uses from the caste systems of India to the terrifying pecking order in federal prison. This says basically the same thing as his last opening, but it's more specific and offers two contrasting images in the reader's mind.
While I was reading his paper, he was reading mine, but his comments weren't quite as helpful.
Let's look at Sam's next comments at the bottom of the first paragraph in paper numero uno.
Nathan's last sentence of the first paragraph is, students in public high school can be broken down into 3 general groups and into a number of subgroups. Sam is unsure if this is his thesis statement and thinks the sentence is too general.
This is around the area where the thesis statement would appear in a paper.
Having the thesis statement between the opening and before the supporting paragraphs is often a good segue into the rest of your paper. It doesn't have to be here, but it should be placed early in your paper.
You see, in academic papers, your readers will expect you to get to the point quickly. This isn't always true in other cultures or other types of writing, but in academic essays, you gotta cut to the chase. Now, let's go back to this last sentence of the first paragraph.
Sam thinks Nathan's sentence is too general for a thesis statement.
As we said earlier, the thesis should be specific and convincing. It should reflect the aim of the paper.
This last sentence does express what he's going to do in his paper. He'll describe the different groups in high school, but he doesn't say what groups he'll break them into. And he doesn't state his position or opinion of high school groups. He needs to make this statement more focused.
My paper is going to be dividing high school students into several groups, so I decided to state each of the high school groups in my thesis statement. Well, actually, Sam suggested that. She's very helpful.
Oh, thanks, love.
We went to the movies last night.
So Nathan needs to make his thesis statement more specific. His paper will be dividing students in high school into several groups. So he decides to state each of the high school groups in his thesis statement. That way, his reader will know that the supporting paragraphs in his paper will describe these different groups.
The statement now reads, students in public high school can be broken down into 3 general groups: the popular kids, the nerds, and the people in the middle. These groups, once defined, can then be broken down into a number of subgroups. He's now specified what groups high school is made up of. It's more focused now. This is Nathan's new working thesis.
We've said it before and we'll say it again. Your thesis statement will probably change a lot as you write and rewrite your paper. Let's go on to the second paragraph in his paper.
The second paragraph of his first draft describes the group in the middle. They scoff at the occasional superficiality of the popular people, but still envy them. They feel sympathy for the nerds, but lack the social confidence to befriend them, fearful that they too will be mired in the lowest social group. Sam comments that she likes his description of this group, but thinks it's in the wrong place.
Nathan's paper hasn't defined who the nerds or popular kids are yet. His organization doesn't follow in a logical way from point to point, so Nathan decides he'll put this paragraph last after he's already defined the other two groups. But overall, his organization is strong because of his pre-writing.
We'll move to the next paragraph of paper number 1. The first couple sentences are, the popular kids are the ones at the top of the social food chain. They're lucky. They have all the perks. Sam comments that maybe he could say more about the popular kids.
In other words, Nathan could define this group more so his readers know exactly who the popular kids are. Nathan hasn't described the popular kids enough. He thought everyone knew what a popular kid was. This is a good example of how getting feedback can help you see your blind spots.
So, Nathan elaborates on his description of the popular kids. He also decides to change the name of the popular kids to the Coolies.
Nathan's revised paper now reads, the Coolies are the group at the top of the social food chain. They're the popular ones. They lead charmed lives. They have all the perks. The Coolies can be divided into 3 basic categories: the jocks, the lookers, and the smart alecks.
The major change he's made here is that he's listed the 3 major groups that make up the popular kids. This serves as a signpost to his reader. The reader can expect that in the next few paragraphs, Nathan will describe these 3 groups that make up the popular kids.
Okay, let's go back to the third paragraph of paper number 1, where Nathan describes jocks.
These sentences state, jocks are easy to spot because they have obvious characteristics. First, they play sports. It's almost impossible to be a jock and not play a sport. Then the rest of the paragraph continues to describe jocks some more. Sam's confused because she's not sure if jocks and popular kids are the same thing.
She's confused because Nathan's original thesis statement in paper number 1 is so vague. His thesis statement didn't state the different groups. It wasn't specific enough, so his reader is having problems following his train of thought. She doesn't know what groups he's referring to.
It's also confusing because there's not enough description of who the popular kids represent, and there's no transition between the description of popular kids and the section on jocks. We know that jocks are one of the types of popular kids because we've seen Nathan's previous outlines and free writes, but you can't tell that from the way it's written. The sentence beginning with jocks should start a new paragraph. That way, the reader would know that a new